the ventilation system screamed first. Then the emergency lights cut to red, bathing the royal corridor in blood-colored shadows. Security Chief Marcus Chen's hand moved to his sidearm as the station's automated voice announced what everyone already knew. Critical hull breach, Sector 7, oxygen depleting, blast doors engaging in 30 seconds. 20 meters ahead, the Zephyrian Queen Matriarch Sullivan moved with her usual unhurried grace, her four-armed form draped in ceremonial silver that caught the dying light. Her compound eyes reflected calm even as the deck plates trembled beneath their feet. Marcus had guarded her for 3 years across 12 diplomatic missions, and in all that time he'd never seen her panic. He wouldn't start expecting it now. "Your Majesty, we need to move faster." He kept his voice level, professional. The 3 Zephyrian guards surrounding her chittered softly, their mandibles clicking in what Marcus had learned to recognize as controlled anxiety. "The blast doors will seal this section," Sullivan said, her translator rendering her thrumming vocal cords into smooth Federation standard. "We have time." 18 seconds. The nearest safe zone was 40 meters behind them, through 2 security checkpoints they'd already passed. The corridor ahead led to the observation deck where the Queen had insisted on watching the nebula formation before the explosion hit. Now that same corridor was about to become a tomb. "Ma'am, we need to turn back. Now." The Queen stopped walking. Her primary arms folded across her thorax while her secondary pair gestured something in Zephyrian sign language that Marcus didn't catch. Her guards froze, antennae quivering. "Chief Chen," she said quietly, "there is a child in the observation deck." Marcus's mind raced through the station manifest, the evacuation protocols, the impossible geometry of what she was suggesting. The deck was cleared 15 minutes ago. "Everyone's in the emergency pods." "No." The Queen's voice carried absolute certainty. "I hear crying. A human child. Approximately 6 years old based on the vocal patterns." 8 seconds. Marcus had seen the Zephyrian sensory capabilities firsthand. Their hearing extended into frequencies humans couldn't perceive. Their olfactory nodes could track individual scent signatures through recycled air across 3 decks. If Sullivan said there was a child, there was a child. "Get the Queen to safety," he ordered the Zephyrian guards. "I'll check the deck." "Insufficient time," one guard thrummed. "Blast doors engage in 5 seconds." Marcus was already running. His boots hammered against the deck plates as the automated voice began its final countdown. 4. The observation deck's manual override panel glowed green 30 meters ahead. 3. His lungs burned as station gravity fought every stride. His fingers closed around the override handle. 1. Metal shrieked against metal as the blast door dropped from the ceiling like a guillotine blade. Marcus threw himself forward, shoulder rolling across the threshold as 2 tons of reinforced titanium slammed into the deck behind him with a sound like a funeral bell. The impact shook his bones. His shoulder hit the far wall hard enough to leave a bruise. Then silence, just as ragged breathing and the low hum of emergency power. Marcus pushed himself upright, drawing his weapon out of pure instinct even though there was nothing to shoot. The observation deck stretched before him in the crimson emergency lighting, floor-to-ceiling viewports displaying the vast purple and gold expanse of the Veil Nebula. Overturned chairs, scattered data pads, signs of hasty evacuation. No child. He activated his comm link. Dead static. The blast doors were designed to contain everything, including communications. He was sealed in, cut off, with whatever oxygen remained in this section, and no way to tell anyone where he'd gone. "Hello?" His voice echoed off the viewports. "This is Security Chief Chen. If anyone's here, call out. You're safe." Nothing. Marcus moved deeper into the observation deck, checking behind the quantum telescope array, under the data consoles, inside the supply lockers. His training screamed at him that this was wrong, that the Zephyrian Queen's hearing was infallible, that a child wouldn't hide during an emergency unless something had gone terribly wrong. Then he heard it. Soft, barely audible over his own heartbeat. A muffled sob coming from behind the astronomical mapping station. Marcus holstered his weapon and dropped to one knee. "Hey there, I'm Chief Chen with station security. I'm not going to hurt you. Can you come out?" The crying stopped. A small hand appeared first, gripping the edge of the console, then a face, streaked with tears and dust. A girl, maybe 7 years old, with dark hair matted against her forehead and eyes wide with terror. "That's it," Marcus said gently. "You're okay now? What's your name?"
"Lily?"
Her voice cracked. "Lily Nakamura. I was hiding because the lights scared me and everyone ran and I couldn't find my mom." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Lily Nakamura. He knew that name from the station manifest. Her mother was Dr. Sarah Nakamura, chief astrophysicist, currently in the emergency pods, believing her daughter was safe in the station's school section. No one had counted the children. No one had verified. Lily, I need you to be very brave, okay? Your mom is safe, and we're going to get you to her. But first, we need to leave this room. The girl crawled out from behind the console, her small frame trembling. She couldn't have weighed more than 20 kilos. Marcus scooped her up without thinking, feeling her arms lock around his neck in a death grip. He turned back toward the blast door and felt the world drop away. The titanium barrier stood 3 meters tall, half a meter thick, magnetically sealed and hydraulically locked. It was designed to contain explosive decompression, radiation leaks, and hostile boarding actions. It could withstand a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The manual override was on the other side, in the corridor where the Queen waited, where the Queen had to be evacuating. Marcus set Lily down carefully and approached the door. His fingers found the emergency access panel, and he punched in his security override code. The panel blinked red 3 times, then displayed a message in Cold Federation standard, Section compromised. Atmospheric integrity critical. Override denied. He tried his command authority code. Same result. His engineering bypass. Nothing. The backup manual release required 2 people operating controls on opposite sides of the door simultaneously, a safety feature to prevent accidents. He was one person, on the wrong side, with a terrified child in a rapidly shrinking window of breathable air. Marcus pressed his palm against the cold metal and closed his eyes. His tactical computer ran the calculations automatically. Current oxygen levels in the observation deck. 42 minutes at his current consumption rate. Add the child's smaller lung capacity, maybe 50 minutes total. The station's emergency protocols would keep this section sealed until the hull breach in Sector 7 was contained and atmospheric pressure normalized. Engineering estimates, minimum 4 hours, maximum 12. They had less than an hour of air in a room that wouldn't open for half a day. Lily's small voice cut through his thoughts. Are we going to die? She stood in the red emergency light like a ghost, her hands clutched together, her eyes already knowing the answer she didn't want to hear. He thought about lying. He thought about giving her false hope, about telling her rescue was coming any minute, but something in her expression stopped him. She was young but not stupid. She deserved truth. Not if I can help it, he said. Marcus moved to the door's service panel and pried it open with his security knife. Inside lay a maze of hydraulic lines, magnetic coil housing, and the main locking mechanism, all protected by redundant safety systems. He pulled out his portable scanner and began mapping the door's internal structure. The Zephyrians built things to last. This door had 17 separate locking points, each controlled by an independent servo motor. The magnetic seal ran the entire perimeter, generating a field strong enough to hold against 6 atmospheres of pressure differential. The manual override he'd used to enter had engaged automatically the moment the door closed, making it impossible to simply reverse the process. There was no way out. Marcus looked at the scanner display, then at the door, then at Lily watching him with desperate hope. Then he looked at his hands. He'd been a salvage operator before joining station security. 8 years, crawling through derelict ships in the asteroid belt, cutting through hull plating, prying open jammed airlocks, forcing his way into places that didn't want to be entered. He'd lifted cargo pods that weighed 300 kilos in zero gravity. He'd held himself against decompression winds that could strip flesh from bone. He'd never tried to open a blast door with his bare hands. But he'd also never had a child's life depending on him while a queen waited on the other side, placing faith in the human she'd trusted with her safety. Marcus returned to the door and wedged his fingers into the microscopic gap between the door's lower edge and the deck plate. The metal bit into his skin immediately, drawing blood. He took a breath, braced his legs, and pulled. Nothing happened. Deosted. He adjusted his grip, ignoring the pain shooting up his arms. Pulled again. The door didn't move a millimeter. Lily made a small sound behind him. Not quite a cry, just recognition settling in. Marcus looked at his bleeding fingers, at the immovable barrier, at the girl who'd put her trust in him. Then he noticed something. The lowest hydraulic line, barely visible through the service panel gap. It fed pressure to the door's bottom locking mechanism. If that line failed, one of the 17 locks would release. It wouldn't open the door. But it would be a start. Marcus grabbed the hydraulic line with both hands and pulled with everything he had. The reinforced polymer resisted, designed to withstand pressures that would crush human bone. His muscles screamed. His vision tunneled. The line held. He wrapped it around his wrist twice and threw his full body weight backward. Something popped in his shoulder. The pain was immediate and blinding. The line still held. "Please," Lily whispered. Marcus looked at her, then at the door, then at his hands, bleeding and trembling. Then he began to pull again. On the other side of the blast door, Queen Selivan stood perfectly still. Her guards had tried to move her 4 times. Each time she had refused with a single gesture of her primary left hand. The gesture meant, "I wait." Her compound eyes were fixed on the sealed barrier. Beyond it, she could still hear the child crying. And now she heard something else. The sound of tearing metal. Of human muscles straining beyond its limits. Of determination measured in breaking bones and bleeding hands. "Your Majesty," the lead guard thrummed urgently. "The sector breach expands. We must evacuate to the emergency pods." "No," Sullivan said simply. "Protocol demands—" "Protocol," the Queen interrupted, her voice carrying harmonics that made all 3 guards fall silent, "serves life. It does not command it." She moved closer to the door, close enough that her antennae could pick up the vibrations from the other side, close enough to feel the human security chief fighting against impossible odds. The Zephyrians had a saying, "Trust is built in 3 years, but proven in 3 seconds." She had trusted Marcus Chen with her life for 3 years across 12 worlds. Now came the 3 seconds that would define that trust. Behind her, the corridor's emergency lighting flickered. The whole breach was spreading faster than the automated systems had predicted. If she didn't evacuate within the next 5 minutes, even the Queen's authority couldn't override the station's final safety protocols. The entire section would be jettisoned into space to prevent cascade failure. 300 seconds. Sullivan pressed her primary hands against the cold metal of the blast door and waited. Marcus didn't know how long he'd been pulling. Time had collapsed into a single endless moment of pain and effort. His hands were ruined, skin torn away to expose raw flesh and bone. His shoulders screamed with every movement, probably dislocated. Blood made the hydraulic line slippery, harder to grip. He pulled anyway. Lily had stopped crying. She sat against the viewport now, watching him with eyes that had gone beyond fear into something harder. Acceptance, maybe. Or the kind of numbness that came when terror lasted too long. Marcus wrapped the line around his forearm one more time, planted his feet, and threw every remaining ounce of strength into one final pull. His muscles tore, his bones ground against their sockets, his vision went white with agony, and the hydraulic line burst. Pressure fluid sprayed across his chest in a hot arc as the line ruptured. The release was catastrophic, sudden. The bottom locking mechanism disengaged with a heavy clunk that echoed through the observation deck. Marcus fell backward, landing hard on his injured shoulder. The pain almost made him pass out. Almost. He forced himself upright and checked the door. 1 lock disengaged out of 17. The magnetic seal still held, the door still stood immovable, but it was progress. 16 locks to go. Marcus looked at his destroyed hands, at his dislocated shoulder, at his body that was already starting to shut down from blood loss and trauma. He checked his wrist display through blurring vision, 28 minutes of oxygen remaining. 16 locks in 28 minutes while his body failed. Impossible. Lily stood up and walked over to him. She didn't say anything, just reached out and touched his arm with her small hand. And in that gesture, Marcus found something he couldn't name. Not courage exactly, not strength. Something deeper. Purpose. He turned back to the service panel and began searching for the next hydraulic line. The Queen's antennae detected the change immediately. 1 lock disengaged. A human achieving what should have been mechanically impossible through sheer force of will. He did it, she said aloud. Her guards exchanged uncertain glances, their mandibles clicking questions they didn't voice. They couldn't hear what she heard, couldn't sense what she sensed. To them, the door remained sealed, and their queen was choosing to die alongside a human they'd never seen her speak more than a dozen words to. But Sullivan had not ruled the Zephyrian colonies for 30 cycles by ignoring her instincts. She understood what the human security chief was attempting. She understood it was impossible. She also understood that humans had built an entire culture around achieving the impossible. The station's automated voice announced a new warning. Critical failure in Sector 7 containment. All personnel evacuate to emergency pods. Corridor jettison in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 240 seconds. Sullivan did not move. Her head guard stepped forward, his larger frame blocking her path to the door. "Your Majesty, I cannot allow you to remain. My oath demands I protect your life above all others. End quote. The Queen looked up at him. Her compound eyes met his, and in that gaze lay the weight of authority earned across decades of rule. Your oath, she said quietly, is to protect what I value. And I value the human who would destroy himself to save a child he has never met. She gestured toward the door with all four arms in a sign that meant this defines us. If we abandon him now, if we choose protocol over principle, then we are not worth protecting. Slowly he stepped aside. Sullivan moved back to the door and pressed her ear analogs against the metal. She could hear Marcus working on the second lock now, his breathing ragged and wet. She could hear the child's voice, small and frightened, asking if he was okay. She could hear him lie and say yes. 3 minutes to corridor jettison, the automated voice announced. The Queen closed her compound eyes and began to pray in the old language of her people, the words her mother had taught her before assuming the throne, words for the dying, words for the brave, words for those who stood between darkness and light. Marcus tore out the second hydraulic line with a savage yank that sent fresh agony shooting through his ruined hands. The lock disengaged. 2 down, 15 to go. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore. That was probably good. The pain had transcended normal sensation into something abstract and distant, like it was happening to someone else's body. His wrist display showed 14 minutes of oxygen. The math was simple and brutal. He'd spent 14 minutes on 2 locks. He had 14 minutes for 15 more. He was going to fail. Marcus looked at Lily. She sat with her knees pulled up to her chest, watching him with eyes that had seen too much. She deserved better than this. Better than dying in a locked room with a stranger who couldn't save her. Better than parents who would spend the rest of their lives wondering if they'd just counted more carefully, just checked one more time, if she might have lived. Tell me about your mom, Marcus said, attacking the third hydraulic line with hands that barely responded to his commands. Lily's voice emerged small and uncertain. She studies stars. She says they're like people, they're born and grow up and die, just really, really slow. What else? Marcus wrapped the line around his wrist. His left arm wasn't working right anymore, something torn in the shoulder. She makes pancakes on Sundays, with blueberries. And she sings songs from Earth even though we've never been there. Marcus pulled. The line resisted. What songs? About rivers and mountains and going home? He pulled harder. Those sound nice. Chief Chen? Lily's voice cracked. Are you going to be okay? The hydraulic line burst in his hands. Third lock disengaged. Marcus sagged against the door, his breathing coming in shallow gasps. Blood pooled beneath him on the deck plates. His body was shutting down, organs prioritizing survival over anything else. He had minutes left. Maybe less. Lily, he said quietly. Come here. She moved to his side, and he put his one good arm around her small shoulders. She fit perfectly against him, like his daughter had when she was that age, before the accident that had taken her and his wife and left him with nothing but guilt and station security work in places far from Earth. Listen to me, Marcus said. I need you to know something. Whatever happens, your mom loves you more than anything in this universe. She's thinking about you right now, and when you see her again, you tell her that the last thing I did mattered. Okay? You tell her it mattered. Lily looked up at him with eyes too old for her face. You're not going to die. Probably not, Marcus lied. Then he pushed himself upright and turned back to the door. 12 locks, 10 minutes of oxygen. Hands that were more bone than flesh. He found the fourth hydraulic line and began to pull. 2 minutes to corridor jettison. The Queen's guards had given up trying to move her. They stood now in formation around her, accepting that if she chose to die here, they would die beside her. It was the old way, the traditional way, the way of the royal guard since before the Zephyrians had left their homeworld. But Sullivan could hear the change in the sounds from beyond the door. The human's breathing had gone irregular. His movements had slowed. The fourth lock disengaged, then the fifth, but each took longer than the last. He was dying. She had gambled everything on human determination, on the stories she'd heard about their species' refusal to accept defeat. She had seen it firsthand during the Tarsus Station siege, watched human soldiers hold a position for 17 hours beyond all tactical logic, simply because retreat felt like surrender. But there was a difference between refusing to surrender and achieving victory. Sometimes determination wasn't enough. Sometimes the universe won regardless of will. 1 minute and 30 seconds to corridor jettison. The sixth lock disengaged, then the seventh.
But the intervals were stretching. 20 seconds.
30. 45. Sullivan pressed both primary hands against the door, as if she could somehow transfer her own strength through the metal. "Come on, Marcus Chen," she whispered in Federation Standard, the human language feeling strange in her vocal cords. "Come on." Or the knife. His mind had retreated somewhere deep and quiet where the pain couldn't reach, leaving only muscle memory and instinct to guide his ruined hands.
"The 10th lock disengaged. 7 more.
5 minutes of oxygen. He couldn't do it. The math was impossible. His body was broken beyond repair. Each breath felt like breathing glass, but Lily was watching. And somewhere beyond that door, Queen Sullivan waited. Marcus found the 11th hydraulic line and wrapped it around his forearm. The line blurred in his vision, multiplying into 2, then 3, then 1 again. His hand closed on empty air twice before successfully gripping it.
He pulled. Nothing happened. He pulled again.
His muscles refused to respond. His body had crossed some threshold beyond which determination became irrelevant. Physics had limits. Biology had limits. Even humans had limits. "Chief Chen?" Lily's voice sounded far away. The number changed to 4 minutes. 4 minutes until Queen Sullivan would be torn into space unless she evacuated. Marcus felt something break inside him. Not physically. Somewhere deeper. The part that had held on to guilt for 7 years. That had joined station security as penance for not being there when his family died. That had chosen every dangerous assignment hoping for redemption that never came. He'd wanted to matter. To do one thing that proved his life had value beyond the mistakes that defined it. This was that thing. Marcus shifted his grip on the hydraulic line. He couldn't feel his hands anymore, couldn't feel much of anything, but he could still move, still pull, still refuse to quit while breath remained in his lungs. He braced his legs and pulled with everything that remained. The line held. He pulled harder. His consciousness flickered, darkness creeping in from the edges. The line stretched, flexed, began to tear. Marcus roared, a sound of pure defiant rage against the universe itself, and threw his full weight backward. The hydraulic line exploded. Pressure fluid sprayed across the observation deck as the 11th lock disengaged with a heavy metallic clunk. Marcus collapsed. The world spun. He couldn't feel his legs, couldn't feel anything below his chest. 6 more, Lily said, her small hand touching his face. Just 6 more. 3 minutes. 30 seconds per lock. Possible, maybe, if his body would cooperate. If his hands would grip. If his muscles would respond. Marcus tried to stand. Blood, his legs wouldn't hold him. He crawled to the service panel instead, leaving a blood trail across the deck plates. His fingers found the next hydraulic line through touch alone since his vision had narrowed to a tunnel. He wrapped the line around his wrist and pulled. Nothing. He tried again. His arm trembled, the muscle fibers tearing with the effort. The line held. Marcus made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. This was it. The end. He had come so close, broken 11 impossible locks, but 12 would remain sealed. Lily would die, the Queen would die, and all his effort would mean nothing. 3 minutes to corridor jettison. Then Marcus felt something. A small hand closed around his, adding her weight to his. Lily had moved beside him, gripping the hydraulic line with her tiny fingers. "Together," she said, they pulled. It shouldn't have made a difference. A child's strength was nothing against reinforced hydraulic lines designed to withstand tons of pressure. But something in that gesture, that shared defiance, gave Marcus one last surge of strength. The line burst. Lock 12 disengaged. 5 locks, 2.5 minutes after. Marcus and Lily moved to the 13th lock. He couldn't think anymore, couldn't plan, could only repeat the same motion over and over. Grip, wrap, pull. Each lock becoming a lifetime of effort compressed into seconds. Gone. Destroyed! 1 minute, 30 seconds. 15. Broken. Marcus reached for the 16th lock and his hand closed on empty air. He'd missed the hydraulic line completely, his depth perception gone, his coordination failing. Lily guided his hand to it, her small fingers positioning his ruined ones around the line. Together they pulled. 16 seconds of effort. 16 seconds of every remaining scrap of will focused on one impossible task. 16 seconds that stretched into infinity. Line tore. Lock 16 disengaged. 1 minute to corridor jettison. 1 lock left. 1 magnetic seal. 60 seconds. Marcus looked at the final hydraulic line and knew he had nothing left. His body had given everything. Blood loss, trauma, system shock, all of it cascading toward complete shutdown. He was dying, and the last lock would remain sealed. But then he remembered something. The magnetic seal required power, and power meant control circuits. Marcus abandoned the hydraulic line and reached instead for the magnetic coil housing. His fingers found the power coupling, a simple connector designed to be maintenance accessible. In his current state, even simple felt impossible. 45 seconds. It held. His fingers slipped off, leaving blood smears on the metal. 30 seconds. Lily grabbed the coupling too, her small hands finding purchase where his couldn't. Together they yanked.
The coupling shifted.
1 millimeter. 2. 20 seconds. Marcus wrapped both ruined hands around it and pulled, with the last dregs of strength his dying body possessed. Something inside him tore. Something vital. He could feel it failing, feel systems shutting down, feel the darkness coming. The coupling released. The magnetic seal died. The final lock, already damaged by the failed hydraulic line, groaned under the weight of the massive door. Marcus pressed his shoulder against the blast door and pushed. The door didn't move. 10 seconds. He pushed again. Nothing. 9. Lily added her weight to his, both of them pressing against 3 meters of reinforced titanium that outweighed them by literal tons. 8. 1 millimeter. 7. Marcus screamed and shoved with everything beyond everything. His bones cracked, his muscles tore completely free of their moorings. His consciousness began to fragment. 6. 5 millimeters. 10. 5. A gap appeared. 20 millimeters. Enough for air, but not a body. 4. Marcus wedged his shoulder into the gap, using his body as a lever. The door ground against his bones, crushing them. 3. Wider. 50 millimeters. A child could fit. Lily, Marcus gasped. Go. 2. I can't leave you. Go! He shoved her toward the gap with his last functional arm. 1. Lily squeezed through the opening, her small body slipping into the corridor beyond. Marcus saw the Queen reach down and pull her to safety, saw Zephyrian guards surrounding them both. Corridor jettison initiated. Marcus tried to follow, but his body wouldn't respond. He'd used everything. Given everything. The door began to close, the damaged mechanisms trying to re-engage. Then he felt hands on his arms. Not small hands this time. 4 hands each gripping him with inhuman strength. The Queen had reached through the gap, her compound eyes meeting his. I have you, she said. The Zephyrian guards added their strength, pulling while the door fought to close.
Metal shrieked.
Hydraulic fluid sprayed. The gap widened just enough. They pulled Marcus through as the blast door slammed shut behind him with the force of judgment. Half a second later, the entire observation deck section explosively decompressed and jettisoned into space, tumbling away into the nebula's purple and gold embrace. Marcus lay on the corridor floor, his body broken beyond recognition, his blood spreading in a widening pool. He couldn't move, could barely breathe. But through failing vision, he saw the Queen kneeling beside him, saw Lily crying and clutching his hand, saw Zephyrian guards forming a protective circle. Medic, the Queen's voice carried absolute command. Now! Everything was fading, the corridor lights dimming to distant stars. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the Queen's face close to his, her compound eyes reflecting emergency lights like 1,000 small suns, and her voice speaking words in Federation Standard that followed him down into unconsciousness. You mattered, Marcus Chen. You mattered. Marcus woke to white walls and the steady beep of medical monitors. His body felt distant, wrapped in something that might have been bandages or might have been neural suppressors keeping the pain at manageable levels. He tried to move and found his hands encased in regeneration sleeves, his shoulder immobilized, his entire torso wrapped tight. Easy. A human voice, female, medical authority clear in the tone. You've been out for 3 days. Your body needs time to heal. His throat felt like sandpaper. Lily, reunited with her mother 40 minutes after we pulled you out. She's visited 12 times, but we wouldn't let her in until you woke up. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling relief wash over him like a wave. The Queen? Currently en route to the Zephyrian homeworld with a new security detail? Though she left something for you. The doctor gestured to a small table beside his bed. On it sat a datapad and a piece of fabric that caught the light strangely, silver threads woven through midnight blue. Marcus reached for it with his regeneration-sleeved hand, his fingers closing on material softer than anything he'd ever felt. What is this? A fragment of the Queen's ceremonial robes. According to the Zephyrian guards who delivered it, she tore it from her own clothing and left it with instructions that you be told its meaning. Which is? Among her people, when someone saves the life of royalty through personal sacrifice, they're given a piece of the queen's garments to signify that they've become part of her household. Essentially, Marcus, you've been adopted into Zephyrian nobility. Marcus stared at the fabric, his mind struggling to process. I just did my job. Your job was to protect the queen. Lily Nakamura wasn't in your job description. The doctor checked his monitors, adjusting something that made the pain recede further. According to the station logs, you spent 43 minutes tearing open a blast door that required 17,000 pounds of force per lock to disengage. You did it with your bare hands while bleeding out. That's not a job, Chief Chen. That's something else entirely. The door to the medical base slid open. A woman entered, dark hair streaked with gray, her face showing the lines of someone who'd cried too many tears too recently. Behind her, holding her hand, was Lily. The girl's eyes found Marcus and went wide. She pulled free from her mother and ran to his bedside, stopping just short of touching him as if afraid he might break. "You're awake," she whispered. "Hey there," Marcus managed. His voice still sounded wrong, damaged. "I hear you've been visiting." Her mother moved to her side, one hand on her daughter's shoulder. Dr. Sarah Nakamura's eyes were red-rimmed but steady as they met Marcus's. "Chief Chen," she began, then stopped. Started again. "There aren't words. You saved my daughter." "You died saving my daughter." "Didn't quite die," Marcus said. "Your heart stopped twice in the ambulance. Your lungs collapsed."
You lost 60% of your blood volume.
"Dr. Jeffrey Bateser." Nakamura's voice shook. "The medics said you were technically dead for 4 minutes. You died for my baby girl." Marcus looked at Lily, at her small hand now resting carefully on his bed. "She told me about your pancakes. I couldn't let her miss Sunday breakfast." Dr. Nakamura laughed and cried at the same time, the sound breaking something open in the room. Lily climbed onto the chair beside Marcus's bed and just sat there, her presence warm and alive and proof that sometimes the impossible happened. The medical bay door opened again. This time a Zephyrian in royal guard armor entered, his mandibles clicking a formal greeting. "Security Chief Marcus Chen," he thrummed, his translator rendering it into Federation standard. "I am Primary Guard Thelvis, Captain of Queen Celavan's personal detail. Her Majesty has sent a message she wished delivered upon your waking." Queen Celavan's image appeared, her compound eyes reflecting colors Marcus had never seen in them before, something like warmth, like pride. "Marcus Chen," the recording began. "By the time you hear this, you will know what you have been given. The fragment of my robes represents more than honor. It represents family. You have proven what I have always believed about humans, that your species possesses a capacity for self-sacrifice that transcends reason. You destroyed yourself to save one child who was not your own, and in doing so, you saved me as well. Not my body, though you did that too. You saved my faith in the bonds between species, in the possibility of trust across the stars. I have lived 93 cycles and ruled for 30. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed courage in 1,000 forms across 100 worlds. But I have never seen anyone fight with such absolute determination for someone they had no obligation to save. You are injured beyond what most beings would survive, but the Zephyrian Medical Corps has pledged their finest regenerative technology to your recovery. When you are healed, if you wish it, there is a place for you among my personal guard. Not as my protector, but as my companion. As family." The recording shifted, showing the observation deck section tumbling through space against the nebula backdrop. 4 minutes, Marcus. 4 minutes between when you opened that door and when this section was lost to the void. If you had been 1 minute slower, if you had torn 11 locks instead of 12, Lily would have died. But you refused to accept that outcome. You made the universe bend to your will through nothing but determination and bleeding hands. The Queen's image returned to center frame. "Rest, heal, and know that when you wake as someone who changed everything. For one child. For one queen. For all who will hear this story and remember that humans are capable of miracles when they choose to be." The medical bay fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors and Lily's quiet breathing. Marcus looked at the fabric in his hand, at the girl beside him, at the doctor and mother watching with expressions he couldn't name. He thought about his daughter who died 7 years ago, about the guilt he'd carried, about the desperate need to matter that had driven him to the furthest edge of known space. He'd wanted redemption. He'd found something better. "Tell the Queen," Marcus said quietly, his voice growing stronger, "that I accept." Lily squeezed his hand carefully, mindful of the regeneration sleeve. Her mother smiled through fresh tears. The Zephyrian guard clicked his mandibles in what Marcus had learned to recognize as approval. Outside the medical bay windows, the Veil Nebula burned purple and gold, a reminder that the universe was vast and strange and sometimes, against all odds, exactly as it should be, that humans could tear open sealed doors in fire when it mattered most. That queens could wait through countdown clocks for soldiers who refused to quit. That one man and one child together could move mountains if they simply refused to believe the mountains were immovable.
Marcus Chen closed his eyes, feeling the weight of exhaustion and healing pulling him back towards sleep. But this time the darkness held no fear, no guilt, no questions about worth or value.
This time it held only peace, and the certain knowledge that when he woke again there would be Sunday pancakes with blueberries, a queen who called him family, and a future built on the simple truth that he had mattered. He had mattered.